Hey, it's Sam with Spieler Custom Base. Today I'm going to go over how I make my marabou crappie jigs. Starting with a 1/16 ounce jig head, I add a little bit of adhesive to the shank just to ensure a good bond with the thread. We then tie down the shank and back up. I'm using a pre-made jig head that I chopped the collar off of. Oh, make sure we don't slice that one off. Then I go up and I cut off my tag end. We're going to be using a black marabou today. I like to use the tip of the marabou for my crappie jigs. Kind of measure up and see about how long I want the tail to be, and wind that down just a little bit. Trim off some of the extra fluff so that when I start my tie-in, it's just a little bit less on the hook shank. And then I start my tie-in about midway through. I wind towards the head and holding the feather before winding back. Just make sure that that feather stays in place. Then I wind all the way back down the hook shank. And I clip off the excess. Then I like to tie it back down just a little bit and clean up. On this jig, I'd like to add a little bit of flashabou just to give the jig a little bit of a reaction piece for the fish. I like to take it and hold it up around the collar and then wind it down, holding it straight so that the flashabou kind of ends up in the place that I want it to before I tie it all the way down in. Kind of work it just to make sure that it's in the spot that I want it. And then today I'm going to be using a pink worm body for the chenille to match this jig's pink head. Just place a little bit down towards the end, shortening up my string there, and then tying it down to fasten it in. And then I like to bring my thread back to the top before wrapping it around tying. I prefer to wrap it the same way that in the same direction that I wrap my thread. Making sure to keep even pressure on the chenille and wrap it to where I want it on that jig head. Then I like to wrap it twice on both sides of the chenille just to kind of lock it into place. And then clip off the chenille when I'm finished. like to finish all of my jig heads with a couple of firm wraps just to make sure that that chenille doesn't move. And then I like to whip finish it twice, just in case the thread frays or one of the nuts fail. Then I clip the thread. And I'm a big advocate of using my bobbin to apply adhesive. It just kind of ensures that you don't have very much bleeding coming down the chenille of whatever jig you're working on. Make sure I get it on both sides. It also helps lock in that tag end. And then I take my flash and trim it to where I want it. I just like mine to be just a little bit long, just barely short of the end of the tail. And then we have our finished product, which is that pink and black marabou crappie jig.